If you're an international student studying for the SAT, there's a high chance you've experienced this. You see giant paragraphs and complicated vocabulary, and your brain immediately goes, if only I was a native speaker. I'm not a native English speaker, but I know you don't need to be one in order to succeed in the SAT. In this video, I'll show you two mindset shifts that instantly make reading easier on the SAT. And then I'll solve two real questions for you, breaking down my thought process step by step so you can see exactly how a high scorer thinks on the SAT. Hi, my name is Hossein, and I've been helping international students like you ace the SAT English as a non-native speaker myself. One of the big mistakes students make is reading the entire paragraph carefully without even knowing what the question wants. That's completely backwards. The SAT is essentially testing one thing. Can you extract information efficiently? So instead, read the question first. Because once you know what the test wants, your brain filters the information in the passage completely differently. This saves energy and also prevents you from drowning in unnecessary information. We'll see that in action when I solve the questions for you. But let me ask you a question. Does it ever happen to you that you're reading the passage and you see a very difficult word that you don't know and you immediately lose confidence? If yes, then welcome to the club. That happens to all of us. But the SAT loves putting scary looking words around very simple logic. Sometimes you don't even need to know every single word. Sometimes even native speakers don't know some of the words. If I say, although the scientist's theory was initially repudiated, later evidence supported it. Maybe you don't know what the word repudiated means, but you still understand. You see although, and then you see evidence supported it. So first people rejected it, then evidence supported it. That's enough to massively increase your score on the SAT. So stop treating every unknown word like an automatic failure. Okay, so as promised, let's look at a couple of questions. So here I've got my passage, I have my question, and I have my choices. The first thing that I look for is the question. Based on the text, which choice best describes Bayer's view of molecular rings? So Bayer's view is what I'm looking for here. Bayer's opinion. What did Bayer think about this subject of molecular rings? So when I'm reading that text, I'm constantly thinking of Bayer's view. What does Bayer think about this according to this text? So let's read. In 1926, while experimenting with the chemical civetone, I might not know what civetone is. It sounds scary, but I don't need to know. So with the chemical, it's already telling you it's a chemical. So in 1926, while experimenting with some chemical, chemist Leopold Rosicka, this is not Bayer. This is not Bayer. Keep that in mind. So he discovered carbon ring structures that contained between 14 and 18 atoms. Okay. Another scientist, which we don't really care about that much, discovered that carbon ring structures contain between 14 carbon ring structures that contain between 14 and 18 atoms. Until then, Bayer's string theory maintained that molecular rings were two-dimensional and the increased pressure of larger structures would make them too unstable to support more than 8 atoms. So here we've got Bayer. So now it's getting important, right? Until then, so it means before Rosicka found out about these carbon structures that included 14 and 18 atoms, before that, until then, Bayer's theory, I might not know what strain means. But Bayer's theory, whose opinion we're interested in, Bayer's theory maintained that molecular rings were two-dimensional and the increased pressure of larger structures would make them too unstable to support more than 8 atoms. So he used to think that very large structures with more than 8 atoms would make this unstable and they wouldn't exist, they would collapse. Okay, Rosicka's theory, so this guy, revealed that ring structures were actually three-dimensional, forcing chemists to re-evaluate their perception of molecular rings. Okay, now let's look at our choices. So what does Bayer think? What's Bayer's view on this topic? They were of molecular rings. They were different for civitone compared to other chemicals. We didn't talk about any comparison with other chemicals here, so this one is clearly not the right choice. B, they could contain more than 14 atoms. This is exactly the opposite of what Bayer's used to think. Bayer's theory maintained that molecular rings were two-dimensional and the increased pressure of larger structures would make them too unstable to support more than 8 atoms. They would become too unstable if they had more than 8 atoms, so they couldn't have more than 8 atoms. So this is completely in opposition to Bayer's view. C, they could only form the shape of flat circles. Well, flat, two-dimensional. This is a key word. They're flat, they're two-dimensional, and they are rings. So flat, two-dimensional rings would look like a circle. So this could be the case. Let's see what D says. They gained stability as they increase in pressure. This is exactly in complete opposition again to what Bayers used to think. The increased pressure of larger structures would make them too unstable. So if there's too much pressure, too many atoms, they become unstable. But option D says they gained stability as they increase in pressure. So this is completely wrong as well. And the answer is option C. So let's go for question number 2. Here I've got an introduction, I've got the passage, the question, and the options. Which one do I look at first? You should say it out loud. The question. I look at the question first. Which choice best states the main idea of the text? The main idea. So what's the most important thing? What's the main idea? What is this paragraph trying to tell us? The main idea. Let's read. The following text is from Charles Reade's 1861 novel, The Cloister and the Hearth. So these are some kind of extra information. So if I need to know the name of the book, I might get back to it, but probably I won't need it. What I need is this main idea, the main idea in this passage. So when I'm reading this, I go very fast. I go from this guy's 1861, the book number, blah, 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 blah. I read it like this in my head when I'm actually doing the test. Of course, I might need it, but just skim over the unimportant parts as much as possible. So the following text is from Charles Reade's 1861 novel, from some novel in some year, and this is the name of the novel. I might not know what cloister means. I might not know what hearth means. Okay, don't panic. The text describes a young scribe who travels through many European countries. Now we're getting some context into what the passage is going to be about. His trivialities were reading and penmanship, and he was so wrapped up in them that often he could hardly be got away to his meals. So this person was so wrapped up in these two, in reading and penmanship, he was so busy, so wrapped up that he could hardly even be taken to have his meals. The day was never long enough for him. He really liked doing these things, reading, writing. And he carried ever a tinderbox and brimstone matches. So these are the kind of words that are a bit intimidating. So brimstone, you might not know what brimstone is, but we probably know what matches are. And then we have candles over here and begged ends of candles of the neighbors. So even got candle ends from the neighbors and matches to light them up. So if I don't know what brimstone is or a tinderbox is, I can still get the idea, I can still get the gist of this text. So don't be intimidated by these words and just keep reading and see if you can understand what this is about. Like a storybook, right? Which he lighted at unreasonable hours. So he would light these candles at unreasonable hours. Who knows, maybe 2, 3 in the morning, maybe in, yeah, unreasonable hours. He would light them and be working on his reading and penmanship. Okay, endured at home, his practices were encouraged by the monks of a neighboring convent. They had taught him penmanship and continued to teach him until one day they discovered in the middle of a lesson that he was teaching them. So, first they used to teach him how to write, and then he was teaching them because he had spent so much time doing these things. So, the text is already telling you that he was so wrapped up that he could hardly be got away for his meals. He would get candles to study and read and write in unreasonable hours. This is the main idea of the text. So you can just think about it. Okay, this person was so into reading and writing that even he was teaching the people who had initially taught him these things. Okay, so I have some idea about the text. I didn't know some words. I didn't know what a tinderbox is. I didn't know what brimstone is. I didn't know what convent is. So, but I still got the gist of it, right? Let's see what the choices are. As a scribe, Gerard shows a strong dedication to writing that influences both his colleagues and his lifestyle. Okay, let's see part B. This is not telling us anything extreme. There's nothing to be to cross this option out, right? So part B, as in the case for many monks, Jared's obsession with writing and reading consumes his time, consumes him so much that his health is threatened. Nobody talked about his health being threatened, and nobody talked about many monks doing the same thing, that their health is threatened. So this is clearly wrong. This is straight up wrong. After his family sends him to study with monks, Gerard refuses to learn and insists on only teaching. But here we read that they had taught him penmanship. He did learn from them, and then as they were discussing and teaching him, they realized that, oh, he knows a lot. He's even teaching us. So we didn't talk about his family. We didn't talk about him refusing to learn. We didn't talk about any of these things. Part C is clearly wrong. D, unlike the people in his town, Gerard likes to express his faith by praying late at night. He got candles to read and write at night, but nobody talked about praying. Yeah? Monks do pray, possibly, but there's no mention of him praying at night. So this is also clearly wrong. So yeah, he showed strong dedication. He worked a lot on writing, dedication to writing that influenced both his colleagues and his lifestyle. So his lifestyle was, yeah, reading and writing at night, getting candles, and his lifestyle was strange in a way, studying at unreasonable hours. And it affected the monks as well. They were learning from him. So part A is the correct answer, choice A. If you're an international student, the SAT can feel a bit unfair. But once you understand how the test behaves, your score can improve much more than you think. On this channel, I'm gonna break down SAT English and explain a high scorer's thought processes in a way that actually makes sense, even if your first language is not English. If that sounds useful to you, subscribe. And if you want to join our community, have weekly meetings with other students like you and myself, plus accessing my video courses, if finding new friends and improving your score together, the links are below.